I'm not an extravagant liver. I'm not stockpiling cars and diamonds and stuff like that.
Beneath the glittering veneer of 1970s Hollywood, Ali MacGraw stood as one of its brightest stars, radiating a beauty and poise that seemed untouchable. Critics hailed her as the next great leading lady, audiences adored her, and fashion magazines vied for her image on glossy covers. She had the world at her feet, a thriving career, a powerful husband in Robert Evans, and every door in Hollywood wide open. On the surface, she had everything anyone could desire. And yet, beneath that perfection, a quiet restlessness brewed. It was as if the stage lights, which made her glow for millions, had begun to reveal the cracks in her carefully constructed life. It was not a scandal she sought, nor the desire to rebel, nor an itch to break free from the golden cage of fame. It was something far more seductive, far more consuming. One knock on her door, one encounter, would rewrite the script of her life entirely. That knock would introduce a man whose presence was electric, uncontainable, and utterly magnetic. A man who would pull her into a world she never imagined, and in doing so, challenge the very core of who she was. Fans watched Ali in her prime, in films that captured hearts and awards that cemented her as Hollywood royalty, yet they could not see what simmered beneath the surface. How could someone so visible, so adored, vanish into near invisibility? How could a woman at the pinnacle of her life willingly step away from it all? This is the story she now tells, one that is as haunting as it is revealing, a story that begins with a door opening and a life forever altered. Steve McQueen walked into Ali MacGraw's life like a force of nature, bringing with him the script for The Getaway. At that moment, Ali's world was orderly, polished, and carefully orchestrated. She had just finished The Triumph of Love Story, a film that would define a generation and cement her status as a Hollywood darling. She was married to Robert Evans, a powerhouse in the industry, a man whose influence extended to the very heartbeat of Hollywood itself. By all accounts, she had a perfect life. And then he appeared. McQueen was everything Ali was not. Raw, unpredictable, untamed. There was an energy about him that made the air vibrate, a presence that could not be ignored. The second I saw him, I knew I was going to get in some serious trouble, she later admitted. He carried with him a sense of danger, a defiance of rules and expectations, and a magnetism that drew people in effortlessly. Ali was not immune. She was captivated from the first glance, caught in the gravity of a man who could not be tamed. On set, their chemistry was immediate, undeniable. It went beyond the professional rapport expected between co-stars. There was a pulse between them, a quiet, simmering intensity that neither could ignore. The affair began behind the scenes, subtle at first, then impossible to contain. Ali did not calculate the risks or weigh the consequences. She surrendered to the emotion, the curiosity, the undeniable pull of a connection that felt more real than anything in her polished public life. "I just dropped everything and went with Steve," she confessed, encapsulating a choice that would dismantle her marriage, silence her career, and redefine her very existence. In 1973, they were married, a pairing that seemed perfect to the world at large, the brooding, rebellious action hero and the introspective, radiant woman. Yet beneath the surface, currents of unresolved emotion flowed between them. McQueen carried his traumas like a shadow, and Ali, slowly but surely, allowed herself to be reshaped by their relationship. It was not merely a love story, it was the beginning of a transformation, one that demanded sacrifice, risk, and surrender. The collision of career and romance marked the start of Ali's transformation. McQueen was more than a co-star or a lover. He was a catalyst, a force that disrupted her trajectory in ways that no one could have predicted. He arrived at her doorstep not merely to offer a role, but to introduce an emotional upheaval that would ripple through every aspect of her life. For Ali, the choice to step away from Robert Evans was less a strategic decision than an emotional surrender. McQueen offered authenticity in a world that demanded performance. Where Hollywood was polished, curated, and controlled, he was raw, unfiltered, and alive. Their relationship was a collision of worlds, the public life of stardom and the private, intense orbit of personal passion. The affair and subsequent marriage reshaped Ali's public image. Gone was the image of the polished, smiling starlet. In its place emerged a woman consumed by love, drawn into a reality that demanded she redefine herself. This chapter of her life was not about glamour or accolades, but about the profound and often painful process of transformation. Life with Steve McQueen in Malibu seemed, at first, like a dream realized. Their beachfront retreat offered a sanctuary from Hollywood's relentless scrutiny, a place where time moved differently. Mornings were barefoot on the sand, afternoons spent in quiet companionship, evenings filled with sunsets, barbecues, and the simple joy of watching the stars. For a moment, it was a paradise untouched by fame, a world that promised freedom and authenticity. Yet beneath the tranquility, tension brewed. McQueen's craving for control was omnipresent, shaping the rhythm of their domestic life. Privacy, which had once seemed like a blessing, came with emotional demands. Ali found herself adjusting, shrinking, and muting her own identity to meet his expectations. "I played cook, cleaning lady, simple woman to the hilt," she later admitted. The scripts, fashion shoots, and public appearances that had defined her former life were replaced by a narrow, self-effacing role. The emotional costs of this isolation soon became apparent. McQueen's possessiveness, volatility, and struggles with alcohol created conflict. Even as the Malibu house offered refuge from public pressure, it could not shield them from personal turmoil. Ali, too, began drinking heavily, and the evenings of peace turned into nights of tension, arguments, and emotional withdrawal. The idyllic beach house, once a sanctuary, became a stage on which both played roles that obscured their true selves. What had begun as an escape became a slow erosion of identity. Ali's life narrowed into a version that existed solely to maintain peace, to appease McQueen, and to preserve the fragile equilibrium of their relationship. The beauty of the sand, the ocean, and the bonfires could not disguise the cost of surrendering one's selfhood to another's needs. To the world, Steve McQueen was the epitome of cool, a steely-eyed icon who embodied rebellion and charisma. Yet beneath that public persona lay a man shaped by abandonment, neglect, and trauma. McQueen's father vanished when he was a baby, leaving a void that no fame could fill. His mother, reportedly alcoholic and unstable, placed him with relatives, and eventually sent him to a reform school for troubled boys. These experiences left lasting scars. McQueen's mistrust of intimacy, his compulsive need for control, and his volatility in relationships were the echoes of a childhood disrupted and abandoned. For Ali, this history shaped every interaction, every expectation, and every boundary within their relationship. Love was never simple. It was entangled with fear, control, and the emotional residue of decades-old wounds. Understanding this past was essential to understanding the paradox of their life together. The same intensity that drew Ali to McQueen, the magnetism, the danger, the authenticity, was also what made their life together fraught with emotional turbulence. The public adored the icon, yet the woman living beside him navigated a reality invisible to all but the closest observers. The consequences of Ali's choices were profound. She had left a husband, a burgeoning career, and a public image carefully curated over years. In doing so, she embraced a life defined by passion, but shadowed by compromise. Malibu's isolation masked the emotional costs temporarily, but the erosion of identity was relentless. Ali had traded visibility and recognition for intimacy and authenticity, yet the intimacy came with demands that chipped away at the person she once was. Career opportunities, once abundant, became scarce. The woman who had captivated audiences began to fade from the public eye, not because of scandal or failure, but because she willingly stepped back, prioritizing love over ambition. Emotional sacrifice became a quiet companion, alongside the joys and challenges of living with a man both brilliant and damaged. Alcohol, control, volatility, and emotional withdrawal became familiar patterns in their relationship. What had been idyllic moments of connection transformed into tests of endurance. Ali's identity, once vibrant and visible, became secondary to maintaining the fragile equilibrium of a life lived in service to someone else. It was a slow unraveling, punctuated by moments of beauty and despair, passion and compromise, love and regret. Looking back, Ali MacGraw's story is not merely one of love or fame. It is a story of transformation, surrender, and the search for self within the confines of another's world. Her disappearance from the public eye, once a source of mystery to fans, reflects a deeper truth. The cost of intimacy with a man like Steve McQueen was immense. The beach, the sunsets, the quiet retreats were not enough to shield her from the price she paid. Love demanded adaptation, compromise, and at times, the erasure of self. Yet, within that surrender lies a story of courage. The courage to choose authenticity, to explore passion, and to embrace transformation, even when it comes with loss. Her narrative serves as both a cautionary tale and a testament to the complex interplay of love, identity, and personal choice. It asks the audience to consider, what does it take to reclaim oneself after living in another's orbit? And in doing so, it leaves a haunting, unforgettable portrait of a star who vanished from sight, only to emerge wiser, transformed, and profoundly human. The Malibu house, once a sanctuary, began to reveal its hidden toll. The waves lapped at, the shore like a lullaby, but inside, the undercurrents were tense and unrelenting. McQueen's need for control deepened with time, each day a subtle assertion of dominance over routines, relationships, even the very air Ali breathed. She had willingly adapted, muted her ambitions, her voice, her essence, but the quiet sacrifice demanded more than she had anticipated. Hollywood felt far away, a world she had once navigated with grace and purpose, now a distant memory. The scripts she had once held, the cameras that once adored her, all lay abandoned like artifacts of another life. Friends visited rarely, and each absence reinforced the sense of seclusion. Ali found herself in a paradoxical space, surrounded by beauty, tranquility, and intimacy, yet slowly being hollowed out by isolation and emotional dependence. Even the simple routines, morning coffee on the deck, reading under the sun, quiet walks along the beach, were tinged with the weight of conformity. Every smile, every accommodating gesture was a careful negotiation, a subtle surrender to maintain peace. Alcohol began to seep into the rhythm of their lives, first as a social balm, later as a crutch to manage the friction and unspoken tension that pulsed through the house. The paradise that outsiders envied had a hidden price. Each sunset was a reminder of the distance between the life she had chosen and the life she had left behind. And yet, there was no turning back. She had stepped into this reality fully, knowing that surrendering her own identity was the only way to preserve what they called love. To the outside world, Steve McQueen and Ali MacGraw were perfection incarnate. Paparazzi shots captured sun-kissed afternoons, candid smiles at premieres, and moments of affectionate play. Magazine covers depicted them as the ultimate Hollywood couple, effortlessly glamorous, intensely attractive, and enviably connected. Fans and industry insiders alike assumed that behind the charm was harmony, that their love was as flawless as the images projected onto glossy pages. Yet, reality painted a starkly different picture. Private moments were laced with tension, negotiation, and subtle battles for control. Ali, once a star commanding attention, now existed in the shadow of McQueen's magnetism. She navigated a constant internal conflict, the desire for love and intimacy versus the longing for creative expression and professional identity. Every choice became a test. Should she attend a dinner, finish a script, or forgo opportunity? To maintain peace at home? The Hollywood lens did not capture the exhaustion behind her eyes, the muted voice, or the quiet desperation of a woman slowly giving up fragments of herself. While the world cheered and admired, she wrestled with questions. She could barely articulate. How much of myself can I give without disappearing entirely? How much love is worth this sacrifice? The public perception, so far removed from the private reality, served as both shield and prison. Praise and envy from the outside validated her choices superficially, yet they could never soothe the ache of identity deferred. Ali had become a master of appearances, smiling for cameras and friends, while navigating a life that was increasingly defined by compromise rather than passion. Amid the tension, there were still moments of pure, unfiltered joy. Malibu offered its quiet magic. Sunsets that painted the ocean gold, spontaneous evening walks along the sand, and rare laughter shared over a simple meal. These moments were fleeting but profound, a reminder that love, even in its most complicated form, could bring happiness. Friends occasionally visited, bringing warmth and conversation that reminded Ali of the life she had once known. Travel became a brief escape, a chance to breathe and reconnect with parts of herself buried under the weight of compromise. In these moments, she felt seen, alive, and connected, not just to McQueen, but to the woman she had once been. Yet, these sparks of joy were fragile, fleeting interludes in a broader narrative of compromise and emotional turbulence. They highlighted both the beauty and fragility of her chosen life, reminding her that paradise was never permanent, and happiness was never without a cost. The intensity of their love was inseparable from conflict. McQueen's bouts of alcohol. Abuse grew more frequent, amplifying volatility in ways both frightening and mesmerizing. Arguments erupted like sudden storms, sharp, unpredictable, leaving destruction in their wake. Yet reconciliation was equally powerful, moments of intimacy and understanding that tethered Ali to him despite the turbulence. Ali's own coping mechanisms emerged slowly, often involving alcohol or quiet withdrawal, mirroring McQueen's patterns. Their relationship became a dance of codependency, passion intertwined with pain. The very intensity that drew her to him, the danger, the magnetism, the authenticity, was the same force that tested her endurance, patience, and sense of self. Love was never simple. It was a storm that demanded constant navigation. Each day was a balance between surrendering to connection and preserving fragments of identity, and each choice carried emotional weight. The Malibu paradise, once a refuge, became a crucible, in which the boundaries of self were repeatedly tested, bent, and sometimes broken. Over time, Ali began to recognize the personal cost of her surrender. The very choices that had promised intimacy and authenticity also demanded compromise and self-effacement. Slowly, she started reclaiming parts of herself, her voice, her opinions, her ambitions. This transformation was neither sudden nor complete. It was a gradual awakening, a rediscovery of identity that had been overshadowed by love and devotion. Reflection became central to her process. She considered the patterns of her life, the repeated sacrifices, and the ways in which love had shaped, constrained, and defined her. This was not a story of regret alone, but of insight, an understanding that passion and personal fulfillment often exist in tension, and that the courage to claim oneself is a lifelong endeavor. Through this journey, Ali learned to navigate both love and selfhood, recognizing that authentic relationships require respect for individuality. Her experiences with McQueen, intense and consuming as they were, became the foundation for this self-discovery. They taught her about boundaries, emotional resilience, and the complexities of human desire. The story of Ali MacGraw and Steve McQueen remains an enduring testament to love, fame, and transformation. Their time together reshaped both their lives, leaving lasting impressions on Ali's identity, career, and personal philosophy. The public remembers the glamour, the beauty, and the romance. But behind the scenes was a narrative of sacrifice, struggle, and profound personal growth. For Ali, the legacy is twofold: a love that demanded everything, and a journey toward reclaiming herself. She emerged from the shadows of surrender with insight, resilience, and a deeper understanding of the delicate interplay between love, identity, and personal choice. Fans and historians may speculate about the Hollywood narrative, but the true story is one of human complexity. A woman who vanished, transformed, and ultimately found herself in the wake of an all-consuming love. Her story challenges assumptions about fame and passion, reminding us that love is rarely neat, often costly, and sometimes the crucible in which we discover who we truly are. Even as Malibu offered the illusion of escape, the world outside never truly went away. Steve McQueen was a celebrity of unparalleled intensity. Every move dissected by the media, every glance captured by cameras, every rumor magnified across magazines and tabloids. Ali, once the darling of Hollywood herself, now lived in the shadow of McQueen's magnetism, navigating a life where privacy was a fragile, constantly threatened commodity. For Ali, the struggle was daily and invisible. She cherished the quiet mornings and sunsets, the intimacy of a home removed from flashing cameras. Yet she could never fully disconnect from the public gaze. Rumors of affairs, speculation about their relationship, and scrutiny of every personal choice created a tension that no coastal retreat could fully alleviate. Even inside the walls of their beachfront house, the pressure of fame pressed in like a silent observer, making each moment of tranquility feel both precious and precarious. Balancing love and the constant attention of the outside world became a psychological tightrope. The world expected perfection, a couple effortlessly glamorous, happy, and magnetic. Ali, ever aware of her own fading presence in this narrative, found herself caught between public expectation and private reality. Anxiety became a quiet companion, and every social interaction, every visit, every casual outing required careful negotiation. She learned to smile for the cameras while suppressing questions about her own needs and desires. Even the simplest gestures, holding McQueen's hand at a public event, attending premieres together, required vigilance. Was the pose convincing? Did it reflect genuine affection or merely the image the world demanded? The strain of this dual existence, being both intensely loved and intensely observed, left a mark that no amount of Malibu sun or ocean breeze could fully erase. Love existed undeniably, but it was intertwined with constant vigilance, careful negotiation, and the subtle erosion of freedom. Every choice Ali made in this relationship came with a price. Career opportunities that once beckoned now seemed distant, even unattainable. Scripts were turned down, public appearances skipped, and invitations declined, not because she lacked ambition, but because sustaining peace in her personal life demanded it. Ali, who had once thrived in the spotlight, found herself sacrificing the very elements of life that had defined her identity. Her personal autonomy slowly eroded. Decisions that once felt natural, what to wear, which projects to pursue, where to spend time, became subject to negotiation, compromise, and sometimes quiet acquiescence. Even small acts, like choosing a dinner menu or deciding how to spend an afternoon, carried unspoken expectations. In trying to maintain harmony, Ali muted parts of herself she once took for granted. Her wit, her opinions, her independent spirit. Moments of introspection were often tinged with regret. She wondered if the love she had embraced demanded too much, if the passion that drew her to McQueen had blinded her to the cost. And yet, within those sacrifices lay a different kind of learning, a lesson in patience, resilience, and the complexity of human desire. She realized that love and compromise were not simple exchanges. They were intricate negotiations of heart and selfhood. Even as the Malibu paradise seemed perfect, it exacted subtle tolls. Each sunset, each quiet morning, each fleeting laughter was a reminder of both what she had gained and what she had surrendered. The romance was intoxicating, but it existed alongside a quiet, ongoing cost, a cost that shaped Ali in ways she would only fully understand years later. Love, Ali came to understand, was never a linear journey. It was a storm of contradictions, a mixture of desire, conflict, intimacy, and obsession. McQueen's presence was exhilarating, magnetic, and life-affirming, but it was also volatile, demanding, and consuming. Each day brought emotional highs that could make the world shimmer, paired with lows that tested endurance and patience. Their love was marked by a delicate dance, moments of laughter and tenderness followed by tension, arguments, and silent withdrawals. Passion and pain were inseparable, each fueling the other in ways that made the relationship feel alive and dangerous. Ali felt both exhilarated and exhausted, drawn in by the intensity that defined every aspect of McQueen's being. Reflection revealed a deeper understanding. The traits that had attracted her most, the danger, the charisma, the authenticity, were inseparable from the emotional cost. Loving McQueen meant embracing a life that was never simple, never predictable. Yet, she would not have chosen otherwise. Within the turbulence, she discovered resilience, the capacity for empathy, and the ability to navigate emotional complexity. Even as she suffered moments of doubt, even as compromise became routine, Ali recognized the profundity of their connection. Love, in its truest form, could demand everything and still feel worth it. She learned that intimacy could both elevate and challenge, illuminate and obscure, and that the lessons of such love were etched deep into the soul. Through the trials, joys, and turbulence, Ali emerged with hard-earned insights. Love required boundaries, courage, and the capacity to assert one's own identity within the orbit of another. Fame, while intoxicating, was fragile. Public admiration could never substitute for self-respect and personal fulfillment. She understood that compromise was necessary, but surrender had limits. Reflection became a tool for growth. Ali realized that the intensity she had embraced with McQueen had been both gift and trial. It had forced her to examine her desires, her limits, and her own capacity for resilience. She learned that personal boundaries were not obstacles to love, but essential components of a healthy, enduring connection. The experiences shaped not only her perspective on relationships, but her approach to life itself. She became attuned to the complexities of human emotion, the subtle currents of desire and fear, and the ways in which love could transform, challenge, and redefine a person. These lessons, born of both beauty and struggle, became a compass for navigating the rest of her life. Looking back, Ali MacGraw's time with Steve McQueen remains one of the most enduring and compelling chapters of Hollywood history. Their story continues to fascinate because it was not simply about glamour or fame. It was about human complexity, love, sacrifice, and transformation. For Ali, the legacy is both personal and public. It is a testament to the intensity of love, the costs of compromise, and the power of self-discovery. It is also a reminder that identity, once overshadowed, can be reclaimed even after years of surrender. Fans and historians may speculate about the glitz and scandal, but the true narrative lies in the quiet, unseen moments, the moments of growth, introspection, and courage. Her story challenges the simplistic notions of Hollywood romance, offering, instead, a nuanced portrait of a woman who navigated desire, loss, and self-reinvention. In the end, Ali MacGraw emerges not merely as a star who vanished, but as a woman who lived fully, loved deeply, and ultimately reclaimed her own voice in a world that often demanded its silence. Married life with Steve McQueen was a landscape of contrasts, intense love, intermittent calm, and sudden storms. On the surface, their Malibu home looked like a retreat from Hollywood chaos, a place where the waves lapped quietly against the shore and the sunsets painted the sky in breathtaking shades of gold. But inside, the nuances of daily life were far more complex. McQueen's temperament, shaped by childhood trauma and a lifelong struggle with intimacy, created a marriage that demanded constant navigation. Small disagreements could escalate, tempered by moments of affection that reminded Ali why she had chosen this life. Independence, intimacy, and personal space became a delicate negotiation. Every decision, from social interactions to evening routines, required careful consideration. Ali gradually recognized her emotional limits. She understood that love was not simply about surrendering to passion. It also required self-awareness, boundaries, and resilience. She learned to anticipate the moods, the unspoken expectations, and the intensity that came with loving a man like McQueen. Daily life was not always cinematic. It was punctuated by subtle compromises, quiet endurance, and the delicate balancing act of maintaining harmony without losing herself entirely. Even in the midst of love, Ali experienced moments of isolation. McQueen's focus on privacy meant that the outside world seldom intruded, but it also placed the weight of emotional labor squarely on her shoulders. She became the mediator, the caretaker, and the silent anchor, often suppressing her own needs, to preserve the equilibrium of their union. And yet, within these challenges lay profound lessons about patience, empathy, and the intricate tapestry of human connection. Despite their seclusion, Hollywood's gaze never truly left them. The media thrived on speculation, rumors, and the tension between the public image of a perfect couple and the reality of their private lives. Paparazzi tracked every movement, magazines dissected every gesture, and fans debated every rumor. Ali, once accustomed to the spotlight herself, now found the pressure suffocating in a different way. Balancing her own fading career with McQueen's intense public persona became a constant challenge. Opportunities that might have reignited